Well, hello and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America, the very first of the year 2024. It's Wednesday, January 3rd. This is episode number 130. That's 130 people. That's how many we've put in the bank. You can go back and listen to all of them because they're all golden and full of wisdom.
That's true. Every last one.
Every last one. I'm Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the left.
So, initially with the Claudine Gay thing, a friend was posting about it yesterday morning, and I was like, well, my prediction, you'll love this, Ted. My prediction is, I'm not sure exactly how this works, but I think that universities have contracts with their presidents, and they're just going to let the contract run out. That was my prediction. And then, of course, 1 hour later, she resigns just to make me look like an idiot.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I assume you're probably right. They probably do have contracts, but contracts are made to be broken. Now, let's not forget, so Claudine Gay, for people who might be listening to this in a future where people might not know who Claudine Gay is.
Right.
Claudine Gay was, until yesterday, the president of Harvard University. She is the shortest ruling president in Harvard history. I think she was only there for 3 months.
Yes.
She testified before a House committee chaired, or at least with member Elise Stefanik, which became the most watched House committee hearing in U.S. history. The purpose of this hearing was to try to get to the bottom of something that kind of doesn't really exist, which is systemic anti-Semitism on American college and university campuses. She was asked, how do you feel about anti-Semitism? Does that violate Harvard University rules and codes of conduct? And instead of just simply say, fuck yes.
No, Ted, she was asked if genocide.
Oh, a call for genocide against Jews would be a violation.
Considered harassment.
Would that be violate the rules? And I guess the thing is, would it specifically, that's an interesting question, right? Because harassment has to be directed against a person or persons specifically. Is there such a thing as group harassment, like calling for genocide of all Slovenian Americans? I suppose maybe. But anyway, the point is, she should have just said, the answer should have basically been a full-throated condemnation.
Yes, of course.
Of anti-Semitism, followed by, wait for the next question, which and she knew she was going to be asked about from the river to the sea. And then she could have answered that question and explained that there's nuance there. But she didn't wait, and she fucked up. So anyway, after that happened, the anti-woke crowd on the right, the Fox News people, and some very wealthy Jewish donors to Harvard University they drew a bead on her, and they went after her. And then when they started to dig, they found a less than impressive record of scholarship, to say the least, including just shy of 50 alleged cases of plagiarism. And I took a look. Apparently, the university had been aware of them. I took a look at them. They look pretty brutal to me.
Does it? Yeah.
It's a lot of Doris Kearns Goodwin type stuff, cutting and pasting stuff that you find online, and then not attributing it to its source, which I never understood.
No.
I guess you could miss one accidentally, but I never understood it because it makes you look good to be like, look, Ted Rall reads all sorts of smart shit. And look, that's the shit that he read.
Yes. It makes the footnotes deeper, which makes you look smarter because no one looks at footnotes.
It also makes you look smart that you read lots of things. So anyway, and that you relied on lots of things instead of just pulling them out of your ass. Anyway, the point is, she didn't do it. Then people dug even further, and it's kind of like, well, how come a president at Harvard never wrote a single book and has only published a handful of articles in her entire academic career? That's a good question. I mean, I've published 20 books.
Yeah.
I'm a cartoonist. Like what?
I've got 4. So it's like, and I'm an idiot. So come on. I'm not president
Those are
Yeah.
synonyms.
Yeah.
but I mean, like, what the fuck? So and so basically they pulled the rug out, and I'm sorry to do long setup, but anyway, they
No, it's okay.
so basically, I think in the end, yeah, they started in on her because of the basically the truth is that they're that wealthy Jewish donors, pro-Israeli donors to Harvard wanted something more like my alma mater, Columbia University. They banned groups like Jewish Voice for Peace from the campus. That's what they wanted. They wanted like a full-throated ban of anti-Palestinian protests on campus. That's what Columbia University has done. You effectively are not allowed to protest in favor of Palestine. You face suspension or expulsion right now at Columbia if you do that. So that's what these people wanted at Harvard. She obviously wasn't going to do that. So that's the real reason they went after her. But the reason that she went down was this anonymous article in the Harvard Crimson by a student who sits on the academic disciplinary committee and said, like, hey, if you had one case of this kind of plagiarism and you were a first-year student, you'd be out for a year and it would like really fuck you up. I mean, I got to tell you, back in the 80s when I was at Columbia, you had one case like that, you would be expelled and blacklisted from the Ivy League and probably 150 other decent schools around the country. Your academic career would be really in the toilet. So, and I think, and I got to admit, for that reason, for me, like, it pisses me off. When I've had people who were more successful and wealthier than me plagiarize from me, that angers me. I don't care if it's some grad student at like the University of Tuscaloosa, but it's like if it's
Well, that would be the University of Alabama. But go on.
But if it's I just like the way Tuscaloosa sounds. But if it's like if it's like, say, the president of Harvard is like who makes millions of dollars a year, and she's ripping me off, I'm pissed because I don't make that kind of money. And that's, so I was thinking she deserved to be fired for that reason, even though that's not really why she was fired. And
well, come on, Ted. I mean, it wasn't just her. It was the president of Penn who did resign very shortly after that, and the president of MIT who's still hanging on for some reason.
Yep.
But I mean, this is like, you can't have a softer ball question. They do not exist. Really, Ted.
True.
I'm Congressman Stantis, R of Alabama. Mr. Rall, are you now or have you ever supported genocide? And Ted Rall answered,
fuck no.
There it is. It was just that simple, folks.
Like, what is wrong with you, Congressman? Have you got last no decency? I mean, it's true. I mean, basically,
that to me was sin number one. Is how fucking stupid can you be?
Well, they were all obviously trained. They were lawyer trained, and they were not media trained. I mean, this was just really stupid. I mean, also, probably you don't even have to accept the president of Columbia didn't even accept the invitation, and I think she didn't even go. And you don't have to go. You're not subpoenaed. Why, why bother? It's going to be a trap. And I mean, the thing is, she's just not that smart. Also, apparently there was some interesting internal politics. Apparently she's kind of a bad person. And so like,
how so?
Well, she threw a lot of fellow academics at Harvard with a disproportionately high number of them being Black under the bus whenever they got into like slightest a bit of hot water. So when she got into trouble, the knives started to come out from under the togas, because it was like, oh, you've been a major bitch to us, and like, oh, like we're gonna get rid of your ass. And so I think there's a lot of
that would explain it too. But how do you explain the faculty, like 70 faculty members signing a letter saying she should stay? By gum, she didn't.
Well, I think what happened, according to everything I've read, originally speaking, she was I think that response was to the, we're not going to let donors. It was a struggle between the academics who were saying, we're not going to let the wealthy donors, the alums, decide on academic policy. And then also there was a strong feeling that this was a right-wing attack on free speech, and that like people should be able to have vibrant, even uncomfortable rhetoric on a college campus, even a private school like Harvard. So, so fuck these right wingers. We're going to keep our president. But then I think, these are academics, and academics don't like to be plagiarized either. So I think when the plagiarism stuff started to happen, her support in what they call the Harvard Corporation started to ebb.
Well, yeah, but I gotta tell you,
like a tide of stolen quotes.
Her letter of resignation is so self-pitying and so full of, frankly, bullshit, that you just kind of think, how in the world did she ascend to that position?
She pulled the race card big time. That's what she played.
Oh God, yeah. This was her.
It was totally smart.
Which of course I think initially, like I mentioned at the top of this podcast, the president of MIT, no one's talking about. I don't even know if it's a him or a her.
It's a woman.
No one's talking about her, and because she's not black, she's not, and she's not the president of Harvard. People
also, there hasn't really been much robust protest at MIT. MIT doesn't. I mean, there is a left-wing political thing there, but it's an engineering school. My father went there. Engineering schools tend to be more conservative, more right-wing. It's more like nosed on the one hand, it's small c conservative in that they're grinds. These are kids who just are there to like become engineers, right? They don't go and protest. And then the politics of it, so there's less politics, and the politics that are there are more moderate. They're not like at a liberal arts school like Harvard.
Well, I think it's all ends well that ends well. What did you see the statement, by the way, from the Harvard Corporation, which frankly, just calling it that freaks me out, because in her resignation letter, it says, the people at the corporate Harvard, but after discussions with the Harvard Corporation, I'm like, going, wow, that just sounds so dark mirror-ish.
I think it's colonial, right? It's kind of like, how like,
is it?
Yeah, well, the college was founded in 1637. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I think it's like sort of like the East India Trading Company or something. It's like, I'm pretty sure, I'd have to look this up, but I'm betting that's what it is.
Anyway, so they came out. Now they have, and their statement, interestingly, a large segment of it was that the interim president, and just flouting his I believe it's him, his qualifications, just saying he's a great president. He'll be
he's written a book. Who knows?
Well, maybe. Well, that's the thing. And that's, we can go over that too. Was this an affirmative action hire that just went horribly wrong?
I'll just say it looks like one. And I know it's like not going to be popular for me to say, but it looks like one. And I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but look, we have gone from a society where basically you had centuries of systemic discrimination against women and people of color. And so instead of simply getting rid of that systemic discrimination, we have now reversed that discrimination in favor of women and people of color and against old white guys. And so, it's you just replaced one set of problems with another. And, back in the old days, you definitely got unqualified old white male assholes in positions of power that they didn't deserve. Well, now you're getting, some people who have a completely different demographics who are being assholes. I think it is a little strange when you think about, like, there's a whole lot of women presidents of Ivy League schools nowadays. I mean, if you think about it, logically, it should be roughly half. It's like,
well, yeah, that's true. But Harvard had already had a female president, so they wanted to do, the next thing.
Right.
Would be my guess, is what the thinking was. And here she was, and she had, come up through the ranks there at Harvard. And, I don't know. It just, I was not able to finish my college career. And I regret that. I truly do. I wish I had her. And so I really may even have an inflated respect for degrees and for colleges and for especially institutions like Harvard or Yale, and Columbia. So
you wouldn't if you'd been there.
I know, and I'm sure it's very different but for me, my academic career is very, herky jerky, and ended with me being kicked out because I was drawing cartoons about the presidents and the president of the college Students Association, which apparently gave seed money to the newspaper I was working for,
Oops.
and was told, yeah, yeah, well, Scott Stantis always thinking.
That's positively LAPD, LA Times.
It was, and I was told that I was no longer a student at Long Beach State, not an Ivy League school by any stretch, believe me. But I do regret not getting a degree. So it's not. So you can have one going through that experience. You can have one or two views of the higher education. One is like, fuck them. They fuck. I made it this far. I didn't need that. Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go and say, I wish I had had the time to focus on and study but my family also made it abundantly clear, Ted, that they were not going to pay a dime for me to go to college, period.
Right.
So they, and true to their word, they did not.
All right. Well, yeah, I think now it's, when you and I were kids, it was not really widely accepted as part of the, middle or upper middle class social contract that parents were supposed to pay for their kids' college education. Now it generally is among,
You don't think so?
fairly educated people.
I'd say every student I knew, their parents were subsidizing their college in some way or
Perhaps
another.
subsidizing, but like now it's kind of like, look, you're supposed to pay, if you can afford it, you're supposed to pay to send your kid for a bachelor's. I would say your obligation ends at the end of the bachelor's degree. Nobody's expected to help out with a master's degree. But
Right.
But like at the time, it was like, if your parents paid half your tuition and you borrowed the rest, that was considered like okay, it certainly wasn't like, and if they didn't do it at all, it wasn't like, oh my God, what fucking monsters. Like now, I mean, if you make like $150,000 a year and you don't pay for your kids to go to college completely without student loans, you're considered like a scoundrel.
Yeah, and you should.
Yeah, because it's necessary. Because a college degree is the new high school degree. To get any kind of job, you got to have a bachelor's.
Yeah, I was denied a couple of jobs because I did not have a degree.
It's stupid as shit.
Yeah, of course, because it was cartooning. Here's the cartoon. Is it funny or not? Is it well drawn or not? Is the concept good or not?
Yeah. I mean, not to mention, you and I both know, like most people who go, you can get a cartooning degree from any number of institutions. And you and I both know that basically almost no one graduates from those institutions and becomes a successful cartoonist. And almost everyone who's a successful cartoonist does not have one of those degrees.
Exactly. Well, okay. So now we'll see who the next president, maybe it'll be Ted Rall. Ted Rall has a degree and he's written a book.
Unfortunately, the job's already taken. Clovis is in negotiations with Harvard, with the corporation. But he's got a major academic problem because he like cripped off some dogs and they're pissed.
Well, okay, and plus, don't fuck with. I'm just saying, don't go into competition with Clovis because you will not. You won't sleep through the night.
You're not going to win. You will not live. Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, I mean, yeah, I do want to allude to something that came up. I mean, very quickly. I mean, Scott, what do you think about this? A lot of my ideological comrades are very upset about this Claudine Gay situation, not because she's a plagiarizing idiot, but because they feel like, oh my God, the right wingers have claimed a scalp. They've nailed a scalp to their wall. Yeah. This has emboldened them. Now they're going to be on a fucking crusade. They're going to be out for blood. They're going to get every like woman of color. They're going to this is like their thing. And I mean, I guess it's like, let's just say that's true. Hey, righties, enjoy. You win this one. You do win this one. It's like, you were right. She shouldn't be there. By the way, her life is going to be okay. She's going back into the faculty.
She's still faculty. She's still tenured faculty.
$900,000 a year. Almost.
Wait, for what?
For her current job. Her back to her old job. No,
paid almost $1 million.
You wonder why tuition is $88,000 a year? Well, tuition fee.
Oh my God, I had no idea she was going back to get paid that much. That's insanity.
It's insane. So anyway, the point is she'll be okay. And so but I mean, look, I think it's important for, if you have integrity, if your side of the aisle loses one, and rightly so, you should say, you're right, you guys are right. And it's like, but it doesn't mean like every woman of color is unqualified. In fact, right now, there are brilliant women of color working at universities and colleges across the country who can't get a fucking break, don't get promoted, are never fucking thought of for jobs like this. I mean, this woman's part of like the CEO class, basically.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Well put. That's a huge part of this, a big part of this problem. And I think the other thing is the right wing, for their part, they were going after woke, right? They were going after the hearing was basically going after the anti-Semitism on American campuses, which Ted and I disagree on, but that's maybe another segment for another podcast. And we've done it actually, so go back and listen. But they were going after the woke mentality on these campuses too, and frankly, her response to the Holocaust question was it played right into their hands. This is precisely the problem on college campuses, is that they can't see right and wrong. What is clearly, here's something that is wrong. You can't parse it. You can think about it, but at the end of the day, I'm sorry, genocide is bad. I think by any
genocide against Jews is like, it's been tried. It's been assessed.
There's a track record.
There's a track record. It is the track record is back. It's an F minus minus minus. It's very unpopular. Nobody likes it. Well, nobody should like it. And
no stars, do not recommend.
It's like if we can't just agree like the Holocaust sucked, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
Like, no one needs Holocaust. We all saw Holocaust 1. No one needs Holocaust 2, The Return. So
Electric Boogaloo, yeah.
Although I have to say, I always wanted to like meet Tarantino because I wanted to pitch a movie idea. Like,
okay.
So, the Germans did keep track of a lot of the people's names who they killed in the camps, but they not all, but there's some were missing. So, and there's no actual, my understanding, I read somewhere, it's not, I mean, obviously she died in the camp, but it's not like documented that Anne Frank died at Auschwitz. Like,
I thought it was. I thought that she died in a dysentery camp.
Is that
they
true?
found it. That may be from
witnesses. I fuck up my Quentin Tarantino pitch meeting.
Oh, but go ahead.
But my idea was like she lived, and she comes back, and she's pissed. It's like the Diary of Anne Frank 2, The Revenge. I'd watch it. It's like she goes and kills the
very
neighbors.
Much on brand with them.
I know you dropped a dime on me.
Oh, that would be great. I'd watch that.
Yeah,
I would totally watch that.
Thank you,
Ted. Do you
Quentin, have your people call my cat.
Yeah, I know you're listening, because he's got to be a huge fan of this podcast, because all discerning smart people are.
True.
Okay, cool. Well then, yeah. So Quentin, give Clovis a call, and we'll make things happen. We'll make the magic happen. Okay, we're gonna bail out of this one. The next one is just as entertaining, because it does have genocide and mass murder, and
it does.
It'll be fun. Stick around, folks. We'll be back. Right. I'm Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
We'll be back. As promised, we are back. I'm Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right.
And also, as promised, I'm editorial cartoonist Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
So, okay, Israel, there is a lot to unpack there this week. Obviously, they're continuing to flatten Gaza until there is just Gaza flats. They'll probably have like land speed racing there next. But as things stand now, the Israelis have assassinated a Hamas operative. I'm not sure exactly what title you'd give him.
He was basically the press secretary for Hamas. Yeah, that would be the best way to put it.
They are painting him as somehow culpable
he was in southern Beirut.
But they're painting him as somehow culpable for the October 6th attacks.
Well, he certainly must have been in the room while these things were being planned. Hamas certainly hasn't denied responsibility. They haven't said like, "Hey, that wasn't us. That was Clovis." I mean, they're totally, it was them. They talked about it at length, and he was the PR flag. By most accounts, he was apparently a relatively moderate voice within Hamas.
whatever that means.
Yeah, but
Frankly,
they droned him apparently.
yeah. Well, they droned his apartment, right? So,
Yeah, and so they
wow.
killed him and a couple other people.
This harkens back to, well, the film Munich is based on the series of retribution assassinations following the attacks in the 1972 Olympics in Munich, where they killed the Israeli Olympic team. I'm not sure how effective, or I mean, does this send a message? First of all, if you're a hierarch, let's say the next ones to go are the ones who are in Qatar, which are really the high level
Yeah,
Hamas, and also the head of
Hezbollah.
Thank you. Hezbollah, is he in Lebanon or is he in Qatar?
He's in Lebanon.
Okay, so now will he be next? Yeah,
Well,
and is this an effective way to fight these guys?
1,000,000% absolutely not even a little bit. This has 0.0000% PR value effect. I mean, if it plays to any audience,
I think it plays really well in Israel.
well, it may play, that's true. It may play very well in Israel, in their extremely insular little society with extremely controlled media. But in the rest of the world, no, it's not going to have any effect whatsoever. I mean, first of all, from a practical standpoint, these kinds of resistance organizations, which have a model that go back really at least 100 years. The French resistance did the same thing. Communist partisans in China did the same thing. Basically, they're designed so that nobody's essential. I mean, think about all the heads of Al Qaeda, all the heads of ISIS that the US kept bombing over and over and over and over. It doesn't matter. It's like they design these things so that everybody can be replaced. If you're in one of these organizations like Hamas, you report directly to one person above you who knows everything that you know, and you've trained two people below you who also know everything that you know, and then one of them can step into your place after you're droned. It doesn't matter. And everybody in the Muslim world knows how it works. It has no effect at all. I don't care how many, it's whack-a-mole. They're wasting their time. I mean, I guess it's like good for you guys in Israel, and I guess to some extent in the US where people don't know better, but it has no effect. It doesn't impact the war at all.
Interesting, because, well, it just seems like as we continue to whack-a-mole, and you're right, on Al Qaeda, which we did, and we've seemed to have done a decent job. They certainly haven't launched anything here in the United States. They've morphed into other things, I suspect, but by killing the leadership, whoever raised their hand, especially if you remember that whole period of time when they would, the new number two is, Muhammad Muhammad. He was killed yesterday. The new guy, Muhammad Muhammad, and then a week later, we was killed today. The new number two guy is, I mean, so at some point, they point at you and say, Ted, you are the new number two guy. You're going to go, no.
Yeah.
No.
I'm good at number three.
I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah, this is great for me. I feel like I really understand my position. I like my desk. I mean,
that's the hopeful outcome, right? That's the hopeful outcome, right? That's the hopeful thing, is that you're going to make these guys continuously look over their shoulder.
Yeah, I think what happens with these kinds of organizations, though, is that when their purpose goes away, then they go away. So, ISIS certainly has been majorly degraded, but it's morphed into other things, and it's active in places where it didn't used to be. And it has a dream that's very appealing to people. But getting back to Hamas and this assassination, I don't think it has an effect, really, Scott. I think one thing that, I don't know if you noticed this, blink and you miss it, but the Times of Israel, of all places, a very pro-Zionist, very pro-Israel war, pro-Netanyahu news outlet, reported that the Israeli government, they got a leak. The Israeli government is currently negotiating with countries like Congo to accept all the expelled Gazans after they're ethnically cleansed from Gaza. And so the Israeli government is starting to admit what I'd been speculating for weeks, that I and others, that the plan now is to expel all of the Palestinians from Gaza and annex the Gaza Strip completely. So they're talking to Congo, of all places, which has like a 52% poverty rate, starvation rate. Look, it's funny because it's like, I don't know why, like the UK wanted to dump its illegal migrants in Rwanda. And then the UK Supreme Court said, like, no, you can't do that. Rwanda also is a desperately poor, dangerous country.
Yes.
And during World War II, before the Nazis came up with the Holocaust, they had this weird plan to deport all of Europe's Jews to Madagascar, which was a French colony, and after the defeat of France, became under Vichy control. But they couldn't do it because there was a Allied naval blockade of Europe, so they couldn't send any ships out. So it's just like, it's a I don't know, what do you think of that? I think it's a pretty
it's absurd. It's absurd. Of course it's absurd. But Palestinians have had places to live in that region for a long time, not least of which, of course, is the former Israel, Judea.
There's a lot of them in Egypt, Jordan.
Yeah, there were a lot of them in Jordan.
Syria.
And the Jordan government said, okay, enough of this bullshit. They were in Syria. The Syrian government said, enough of this bullshit. They were in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese said, this enough of this bullshit. They just, they were house guests.
Well, a lot of them are still there. A lot of them are still there in those places that you mentioned.
But not the numbers they were, certainly. It's interesting that you mentioned this because I came across an interesting article recently that almost immediately after World War II, looking at, and this actually made some sense. And in hindsight, damn, I wish they'd done it, is to carve out a state of Israel in southern Germany.
Well, that would have made far more sense. I mean,
yes,
let's penalize the country that was responsible for the Holocaust.
Right.
But you and I both know why they went with Palestine, because
the Zionist
already
movement.
A Zionist movement. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd already started. They lobbied and they said, oh, we want to, we've already started our shtick down here, let's send the rest over here. We'll take care of it and we'll start a state.
On another issue in Iran, I think the death account I saw just before we started recording was 141 dead, 150 injured. In Iran, they were celebrating Qasem Soleimani's, I don't know, what was the death day?
The fourth anniversary of his assassination by, I believe also that was a drone ordered by
that was us.
Then President Trump.
So that was Soleimani Palooza was going on, and someone lobbed in a bomb.
Two bombs.
Is it two bombs?
Mm-hmm.
And no one is
it's
taking.
A little gauche, frankly. It's basically a funeral. It's a little gauche to blow up a funeral. I mean, I think
4 years later, it's not a funeral. Then it's celebrating a guy who seems kind of like he was a dick. But
I mean, look, Soleimani was a true hero of Iran. I mean, it is impossible to overstate how beloved he was. I mean, this would have been the best comparison is it would have been as if Colin Powell had been murdered and assassinated by some foreign country. The people of Iran are just absolute. He was incredibly popular. So, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so who did this?
Now, yeah, we're going to try and guess. And now this is what the segment we like to call is talking out of our asses. Because
that was every segment.
No, we're smart. We're experts. Shut up, Ted.
All right,
no,
sorry.
Seriously, with this really is. But I'm going to defer mostly to Ted because he knows the region far better than I do. But who would have done this? And because no one has taken credit for it yet, so it's clearly not a Shia, terrorist group. Clearly, because they would have,
Well, why? No, first of all, no Shia intelligence, no Shia group would assassinate, an Iranian. I mean, the Shia, right. Iran is the only majority Shia country in the world. It is.
Is that right? Okay, I didn't know they were the only one. Okay, so it's not
Shia. They are the bosses
Sunni
of the Shia world.
So is there a Sunni group that would do this just because why not? But they would have been, at this point, there would have been a note to Al Jazeera. There would have
There
been
would have been a
some.
claim of responsibility.
Exactly. So this tells me one of two things, two people, two entities.
ISIS blew up a Shiite shrine in 2 years ago, and they always claim responsibility. They love to brag, but there hasn't. And also in ISIS also blew up. They went after. They tried to blow up the parliament in Tehran, and they attacked 2 Iraqi military bases that housed U.S. troops. And that's so. Anyway, that's like that was in 2017. There's a group called MEC, which is basically a Sunni terrorist group that's supported by both Israel and the United States. So, I mean, here's my speculation. So people are like, well, was it Israel? Directly? I mean, they can. Remember a few years ago, the Israelis directly assassinated a guy, that nuclear scientist in Iran. They're using a remote control machine gun parked on the side of the road. Like basically their operative set it up, and then they're like on their laptop, and then I mean, it's like crazy. It's like insane.
It's no flamethrower drone, but then what is?
No, that's true. And I always keep waiting for the flamethrower drone to make its debut in the international news, because it has so much to recommend it. But
yes,
it just feels like one of the most neglected weapons. It's so unfair, really. But more, more flamethrower drones for us. So it's all good. If you guys don't want to be smart enough. So if this had been ISIS, they would have taken credit at this stage. ISIS would have taken credit. It could. Look, I got to say, my strong suspicion is we're talking about. We talk about Iranian proxies, right? Like Hamas and Hezbollah and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Badr organization in Iraq. Okay, U.S. proxy like MEC. They would have done it for us or for the Israelis or both. I think that's what we're probably looking at.
I think you're right. I think the United States had a bone to pick here. Soleimani was in Iraq.
I think it's a message. It's like, we can get you anytime we want. We don't fuck with us. It's like a shot across the Iranians' bow.
I'm almost thinking that
Israel direct shot.
I'm almost thinking that don't you dare, celebrate this guy who directly ordered the killing of American soldiers. That's why I think that there's a much more likelihood that this was
directly ordered the killing of American soldiers engaged in an illegal invasion in a place they had no business being ever. But never.
Well, that's not really someone's decision to make and then kill an American soldier. I hear what you're saying, but logic stops at a certain point, and you have to expect retribution, and that's what they got. That's what I'm thinking.
I think it can't be Israel directly. If it is Israel directly,
no. I think it's America.
Foolish, because that could draw. Iran would not be allowed to. I mean, their intelligence agencies are very, very smart, and they will figure it out. They're very advanced, and if they figure it out, and it's Israel, they don't want war with Israel at all. It's very clear they don't. But if they had to, they wouldn't be able to resist the domestic pressure. They'd have to.
And doing the math here, just doing the alchemy here, Ted, it doesn't make any sense for Israel to do this there at that time. It makes perfect sense given, America being Americans and thinking, you bastards are celebrating this guy's life. Okay, that's enough of that bullshit. We're going to blow up your parade. And that to me sounds extremely American.
Well, or more to the point, it sounds more like the Americans told their proxies.
Yes, their proxies, whoever it is.
Go do something. We don't really care what you do. Just go do something. Because if it was ordered directly, I don't think we would do this. I don't think Americans would blow up basically a funeral. They just wouldn't. It's just not our way. I mean, we do lots of bad things, but
you keep calling it a funeral, but it's not. It's 4 years later. This is a celebration.
It's a memorial service, basically, right?
Yeah, it's a celebration of a guy who did some pretty shitty stuff to us. And so that to me gives people in those positions the thought that, fuck them. They're going to celebrate this guy. Nope. And which is
Could
It's
be.
not
We
practical.
are going to find out.
There is no practical reason to do this other than revenge of some kind or another. It's not there. I mean, there's no other practical reason to do it. You weren't killing the scientists, the nuclear scientists. You weren't getting rid of the hierarchy. You weren't getting rid of the Ayatollah. You blew up a bunch of innocent schmucks who are celebrating a schmuck's life. That's my take.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll see. It's
Okay.
I mean, seriously, I don't know. It's like, I mean, it's pure speculation at this point, and there is no fucking way to tell. But I don't think it's going to be a, I don't know. I just think it's like I do really hope and pray that Israel had nothing to do with this directly, because that will spread, that'll blow this already terrible situation in Gaza up into a major regional conflict between at least one nuclear power and maybe two.
Well, and the reason I don't think it's Israel is why their hands are tied. Hands aren't tied, but they're busy. They're not just Gaza. By the way, we haven't even talked about what they're doing in southern Lebanon, which is roughly the same
the West
thing.
Bank or Syria.
West Bank seems to be kind of back, not getting much of the brunt of this, but southern Lebanon is getting the shit bombed out of it.
That's true. Yeah, but they're busy in West Bank too.
So
every now and then they blow up the Damascus airport.
Yeah, let's face it. The bathroom lines are crazy. Bless you. Okay. On that note, we're going to go and shut down this segment, and then we're going to go on to another segment. See how that works?
Wow.
Stick around, kids. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Stick around, kids. I'm Scott Stantis coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall coming to you from the left.
We'll be back right after whatever.
After something.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Scott Stantis coming to you from the right. This is the last segment of the DMZ America podcast for Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. Ted, I actually wrote down 2025. I'm not sure why, but
you want this year to be over? It just started. Although God, I'm kind of with you.
Jesus, this scared. Election is, how fucked is this election going to be? Oh my God, this is going to be it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, it really will. I mean, the only good thing would be if for some reason Biden and Trump decided to leave, say, the earth, and we're no longer president.
Yeah, that would be.
It might be okay.
Okay, we have one subject, but I want to touch on one real quick to you, Ted. The hyperbole, and which is we're all prone to, particularly the left, in some ways, because if Donald Trump wins in November 2024. Is that the end of democracy as you and I grew up to know it in this country?
Well, the funny part is, I mean, I know obviously Hitler came to power democratically, but I mean, it is funny to say, like, well, if a president comes to power democratically, isn't that kind of democracy happening, but inherently? But is it I'm going to go out on a limb and say that democracy is in major crisis already. And I'm referring to these 14th Amendment cases. Trump is already going to be probably off the ballot in at least 2 states, one of which he would have carried, Maine. Therefore,
Trump would have carried Maine?
You don't think?
I don't think. Did he? I don't think that he has.
Well, I think before. Maine's a conservative state. It's a red state. I mean, it's not a liberal state at all. So
you keep talking. I'm about this up. I'm about to.
You can look that up. But I mean, so the thing is, would he be? I mean, will he be a dictator? I mean, the thing is, okay, so he was in power for 4 years and he wasn't a dictator. On the other hand, he's been plotting and scheming. So I guess the answer is I don't fucking know. I mean, obviously he has authoritarian leanings, and obviously he's going to have far less to lose. And obviously he's learned a lot from his first time. He's definitely going to come in and replace a lot of the deep state with his own people. So he's going to run a tighter ship. He will be a more effective president for his own self-interest. There's going to be some institutional resistance, of course. I don't really know. But on the other hand, I guess my question for you, Scott, is it a democratic process if, for example, there was effectively no Democratic primaries, which is already going to be the case, and effectively the Republican primary has been a completely dead process between a guy who's ahead by 50 points against a bunch of pipsqueaks who are all fighting to be a distant second place. And then you've got the 14th Amendment kicking Trump off the ballot in up to 14 or probably more states. I mean, is it a democracy? I mean, you don't have good ballot. The leading independent candidate, RFK, is polling 22%, but so far has $15 million in the bank, and yet so far has only managed to get on the ballot in one state, Utah. Is that a democracy? I mean, there's no ballot access. We're not having a vigorous debate. I mean, I think kind of in a way, there is no nothing democratic small d democratic will emerge from this process, or can. Now, that said, is Trump a colossal asshole? Yes. Is he a colossal right-winger? Obviously. But I don't know where this leads. It's all I know is it's going to be bad. I just don't know how.
And if you notice my proviso, I said democracy as we know it, because you and I kind of agree, especially when it comes to third parties, that America is bereft and needs to have much more robust third party activity in our elections. But I do believe that, deep state stuff, I think that his disregard for the Constitution, I believe that he will, I have to believe that he would run, if he was alive and, still, around, obviously, that he would run again in 28, even though it looks like he should
be illegal. Yeah.
Maybe not. You don't forget, does it say 2 consecutive terms, or does it just say 2 terms? I'm not,
it says
the
2
22nd
terms.
Amendment.
It says
okay, well, but they could kind of ignore that, and
or constitutions can be amended.
Yeah, but that's not. I was just looking at the electoral map, and Maine is a Democratic state.
It is
solidly blue. Yeah,
really.
It went for Biden in 20, went for Hillary in 16, and then all the way down. It's a Democratic state.
And what are the polls right now?
Oh, Ted, you're asking a lot of questions.
Yeah,
and I have so few answers.
Up right now, Real Clear Politics. Talk to me.
So democracy, as you and I know it.
Yeah,
I mean,
Biden's ahead. Yeah,
is he?
By 11.
Wow.
But that was in September. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, but both states. In Colorado, I always thought Colorado as a purple state, because outside of Denver, outside of Boulder, I mean, it's a very, very red state. Outside of those, I mean, the population is significantly smaller, but it's still a very red state outside of those metro areas. Mm-hmm. In fact, Colorado Springs, which I think is the second biggest or third biggest city in the state, is very, very red. I mean, it's all military. It's all, retired military. So yeah, I don't know. There's a part of me that likes to believe that the democratic institutions and the Constitution and the checks and balances will stay in place. We survived 4 years of his presidency before, and we didn't spiral into, cats and dogs living together.
Nothing happened.
Yeah. Well, something happened. It was pretty unpleasant.
There were actually some cities burned. Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't have burned with Hillary around.
No, really? That's true. No, that's true.
So, okay. Well, obviously we will wait and see. I have a bad feeling that he has enormous potential to win that election.
Yeah. The question is, I'm a little tired of reading like all these articles in the press, which, a lot of op-eds, like if Trump wins, it'll be the end of democracy. And I'm like, I don't want to hear like a bunch of airy, vague bullshit. I want to hear specifically someone say, from a journalistic standpoint, what exactly will Trump do? Like with his cabinet, with his deep state, what policies will he pursue? what administrative, like what executive orders will he sign?
Well,
I want to know exactly.
Okay, I can give you a couple of examples of what he has said, and that is to weaponize the Justice Department to go after his enemies, to set up camps, his words, not mine. Those are two really chilling things to say, potentially.
Although, frankly, leader. The DOJ already is weaponized to go after, him.
Well, there's that. I mean, no, and that's always been it's always been sort of an interesting debate, and not just the debate, but just back and forth. I mean, Nixon tried to weaponize it, obviously, with Mitchell as Attorney General. You had
Hoover's
other
always
instances.
been J. Edgar Hoover.
Right. Well, J. Edgar Hoover weaponized himself and weaponized the FBI and went after, obviously, MLK and others. I just wonder I think this guy has revenge, and it sends a shiver down my spine to think that the chief executive of the United States' primary concern is going to be revenge. And that's kind
of like what, okay. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that's happened, though. I mean,
No, there's been political revenge. There's obviously, when we had the spoils system back in the 1800s, you had, a Democrat finally got elected with Grover Cleveland, and the spoils system. So he shifted all those offices, all those appointments from Republican office seekers to Democratic office seekers. And then it was kind of like ping pong, because Harrison wins and then Cleveland wins again, and then McKinley wins, and it goes back and forth. And they finally sort of got rid of it. My point being that, there was that level of trying to wipe out your enemies politically. That has always happened. I mean, hell, if you saw Hamilton, you saw what they did to each other. It was, monstrous. But this would be using the presidency. And what does that mean? Could Trump potentially use the presidency and effectively I'm going to stay in office forever, until I'm dead? Well, that would effectively obliterate the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would the armed forces and other people in position to enforce those laws step up and say, you can't do that? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, it'd be fun. It was a nice country while it lasted. It's what, 250 years?
It was a nice run.
Years?
Yeah.
We did okay. It was no Rome, but Rome wasn't Rome. Really.
Yeah, it'll be 250. Yeah, it's going to be I guess that'll be the sesquicentennial is in 2 years.
Oh my gosh. What are you doing?
Oh, I'm working on the logo. Remember the logo of the bicentennial?
I do, the star.
70s by logo.
Yeah.
It's very strange to me that there's no discussion whatsoever about that. I mean, the bicentennial was a big deal. Sesquicentennial would seem to me like a quarter of a millennium would be a big deal. How come no one's talking about 2026?
Well, we are now. We're just starting the conversation, Ted.
That's right. We are the DMZ America Podcast official sponsors of the sesquicentennial.
We're the official podcast of the sesquicentennial.
Wait, is the sesquicentennial 50? Or let me see. I'm looking that up. Like it's okay. Sesquicentennial might be. Ooh, there's already a website, America250.org.
Oh, that's not a great phrase.
Sesquicentennial. Oh, okay. So this will be, I apologize. This will be the semi-quincentennial.
Semi-sesquicentennial?
Semi-quincentennial.
Help me.
Well, so, there's the quim, which is the part, it's like the taint. And then the semi-quim is like adjacent to the taint, or half the taint. So
wow. Okay. Yeah, well, there's that now. Now we know. So the official DMZ America, the official podcast of
the semi-quincentennial. Yep, that's how it is. Yeah.
There it is in a hot, steamy pile.
Yep. Here it's got its own Wikipedia page, also called the sesquicentennial or the quarter millennial. Which one do you think will catch on?
Quarter millennial.
I'm going to say semi-quincentennial is not catching on. It's too multisyllabic. Sesquicentennial is strange.
I think quarter millennial.
Whose sester was it? Can you marry legally in the South? Like what?
Theodore.
Quarter millennial, I think it's where it's going to be.
Yeah. Is there a logo?
There is a very unattractive logo, and of course, because it's 2024, it's moving. I leave it to you to go check it out. But
Okay.
yeah. So let's see,
All
what
right.
kind of activities will there be?
Not
much, it looks like, at this point.
I just remember there being a whole shit ton of fireworks. Lots and lots and lots of fireworks. Nothing else. If you remember, like the
there was a
Statue of
train. There was a bicentennial train that like carried like relics of the Republic across the country.
I remember that. I remember. Oh my God. I think I went to it if it came to Madison, Wisconsin.
Dayton, or nearby or something.
And President Ford was, championing the bicentennial.
So apparently there's, apparently the Circulating Collectible Coin Redesign Act of 2020 allows the mint to redesign any and all coins in 2026. It calls for a series of 5 designs for the quarter, including one that depicts women's contribution to independence. Also, there are plans afoot for a casting of a new public bell. Maybe you could get a bell that's not fucking broken this time. Apparently, there will be new postage stamps, appropriately named naval vessels. Thank God for that. I was very worried about my naval vessel.
Yeah, my navel. I stare at it all the time. So I have to name it now?
There might be some lint caught in my navel at this point.
Okay. Wow. Well, who knew? Thank you. Wow, I didn't know all that stuff. I didn't know that we were about to. It surprised me that we were coming up on it, and I was there for the bicentennial, as you were. I just remember it being kind of like disappointing, sort of like Halley's Comet.
Yes, I would agree. Oh, the commission in charge of it has already had a couple of scandals.
Oh God,
one
you're
of them
kidding.
Involving sexism, so that's cool. It's very American. Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yeah. So anyway, apparently the first person to get a major report about this was Vice President Mike Pence at the time. So
report for what?
This has all been bubbling under the surface, like a rat crawling under the foundation of a Manhattan building.
Why would I'm confused. Why would Vice President Pence get a report on this for just like
he's ominous.
Yeah, that's when you think of Mike Pence, you think ominous.
I do. Actually. He is ominous.
Do you?
Oh, I think he's incredibly dark and creepy.
Oh, this dark and creepy, but that's not ominous. It's only ominous only means if he has power over you.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think like in the same way that the 2024 election campaign is ominous.
This is true. That is true. Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, you've got 2 old guys. Why don't they that would be kind of fun. Do you remember, let's
test death, battle royale.
Do you remember there's an anti-war ad on television? And it shows these 2 really old, saggy old guys in boxing attire, and they're going, bing, and they start boxing. It says, wouldn't it be great if all wars were handled like this?
I like it.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I was just, God, that's so weird. I remember it. It was shocking. It was played on primetime a couple of times. Yeah, but I really do think, could you imagine Trump versus Biden in a boxing match? Death match.
Yeah. Whoever survives. Ideally, neither of them. But yeah.
Trump would eat him.
It's true. I mean, he'd still come out hungry too, because Biden's pretty thin.
Yeah, there's not a lot of meat.
I bet he's stringy.
Okay, on that note, why don't we tie this up in a neat little bow? And Ted, you tell everyone where we can see all things Ted.
You could listen to the final countdown on Radio Sputnik Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until 12 noon Eastern time, or you could just check it out on Rumble. Just Google it and Rumble. You could also go to whowhatwhy.org on Saturdays or sometimes Sundays. Go to Rall.com, go to gocomics.com/Ted Rall. That's all I got. All I got today. How about you, Scott? Where can people find all things Scott Stantis?
You can go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis or gocomics.com/Prickly City and see my comic strip. You can also go to chicagotribune.com/opinion and see the work I do for them. And starting this week, you can go to the Dallas Morning News and see the work I do for woohoo! Yeehaw!
Welcome back to that same old place that we joked about.
It was very nice. I got a super nice note this morning from the editorial page editor welcoming me back. It was very sweet. So I was like, oh, well, maybe this was a good decision. And lastly, but not leastly, you can listen to Ted or a number of other really smart people on Centerclip, which is a place you can go to centerclip.com, and there are mini podcasts, 30 seconds, no longer than 5 minutes. We will say smart things, hopefully, about breaking news items and other issues. Again, that's centerclip.com. For all of us here at the DMZ America podcast, thank you for listening. And until next time, we'll see you in the funny papers.
Bye, Scott.
Bye, Ted.
Bye, America. Happy semi-quincentennial.
Happy quarter millennial.
Minus
Woohoo! I want the t-shirt.
Okay, I'll get you the t-shirt.